Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the True North podcast. I'm your host, Micah Price Ballard, and if you're new here, we're shooting this from our brand new studio, the in-home studio, yay! Appreciation for the light up sign, have to say it every time, really just can't get past the light up sign, I love it. But yeah, so like I said, my name is Micah Price Ballard, and I am 24 years old, and I live in small town West Virginia, and I started this podcast as a way to further my online ministry that I started in 2020. It started out as, social media blogs, devotionals, just me sharing really what I learned in scripture and what I felt like the Lord was speaking to me. And my whole goal with that was really to just be relatable to somebody. I wanted someone to feel like they had someone they could relate to and be like, oh, I actually know exactly how that feels. Or, oh, that's good to know. I wish I'd known that when I blah, blah, blah. And then we can just keep it going, So yeah, all the positive vibes. Love Jesus over here. That's what we're all about here at True North. And the podcast is a platform to talk about Jesus and talk about how much I love him and everything that he teaches me, which is a lot. So buckle up. I be getting lessons all the time. But yeah, he does a lot for me and does a lot in my life. And I am truly honored that I get to share it at all. And I'm truly honored that you would be willing to listen to me yap for the next 20 or 30 minutes. So honestly, appreciate it. Really. Love you lots for that. But yeah, so let's just get started. This episode this week, this is exciting actually. And some of you might remember this, but I posted this questionnaire a couple months ago because, I had to go get married and take a big break. So that's completely my fault. My bad on that. But I did post a questionnaire and I asked people to tell me, what is something that someone in the church or a Christian person told you when you were single that was super unhelpful? And the inbox was popping. I mean, I literally had to go through so many of the messages and be like, I want to answer and talk about all of them, but I don't have time. So I picked like 3 or 4. So don't hate me if I didn't use yours. Just know that I did see it and I absolutely reacted to it. Some of these, it was like comical, right? Because it's like that person's so crazy. But then other times it was like, wow, this is really sad. And I am super sad that someone actually said these things to you and actually told you that this was true and that that they thought this was helpful. I don't know. I was literally flabbergasted. So what I'm going to do today is actually read aloud some of those submissions, all anonymous, by the way. And I just kind of want to speak some truth and life over them and into those spaces. I kind of want to relate to them in the sense that, when I was single, I know what was not helpful and what was helpful for me. And I'm hoping that this can kind of shed some light in that area because we all have a different journey with this. We've all experienced this in some way. And I mean, I can just tell you right now that there were several occasions where I had people tell me, oh, well, you'll never find what you're looking for. Your standards are way too high, or you have complete unrealistic expectations of a man. Well, joke's on y'all. Cue the wedding ring, but God done did it. But that was so hurtful and not helpful. And especially as someone who was waiting and trying to stay positive and encouraged and wait well, why would you speak that over somebody? Why would you want to tell somebody that what they're waiting for is not worth it? It's not going to happen. Like, that's terrible. And so there's a lot of stories like that I've noticed that actually some of y'all got it way worse than I did. There are some really harsh things that have been spoken. I remember one of the submissions, the girl was like, I don't trust your values, is what someone said to them when they said that they were waiting for a godly spouse. Like, why? Like, they don't even know this person. It was just crazy. I don't know. So yeah, I just kind of want to talk about those and kind of expose some of that. But also, if you are not single and you're listening to this, I hope this is like a how-to guide for you on what to say and what not to say to your single friends. And if you are single, I do hope this, again, provides some relatability for you and some encouragement that, God's timing is different than ours. His expectations are different. His plan is different. And just because someone says something to you doesn't make it true, So let's just get into it. So I actually recorded this yesterday. Really liked it. Had a really cute outfit on. And my neighbors so lovingly began to hammer at their roof. And you could absolutely 100,000% hear it no matter what I did to the audio. So yeah, we're redoing it. Hopefully, there's some new things that come and the Lord moves in a different way this time. But yeah, so sorry if you're watching the video. I was much cuter yesterday, but just didn't line up that way. So here we are with what not to say to singles in church. So this first one, we'll just start off strong, why not? Some people are just destined to be single. Yeah, not feeling how that is helpful. That is... I think the intention behind this is to make somebody feel comfortable with where they're at. But let's just be real, that does not feel good. Especially if you don't think that you're destined to be single and you believe that the Lord spoke to you, you're going to get married. Not super helpful. Not feeling really good. And on a serious note with that, what I don't like about this advice, I guess you could say, is that you don't know what God has spoken to somebody. So who are we to, speak over that and into that when we don't know? For all we know, the Lord gave them a confirmation and a promise that they would be married one day. Why are we not encouraging them to just wait well, as opposed to just be like, well, just accept it. I don't think you're getting it. That's just sad, And I know there are people that never get married. Some people aren't called to marriage, and I think that's totally okay. And that's really a whole separate thing than what we're talking about today. But I don't think that should just be this umbrella that we put over someone who's not married yet. Oh, well, maybe it's just not for you. Maybe God just isn't going to do that for you. We don't know that. Again, we can't put God in a box. That's not for us to speak into. And when we discourage someone like this, I think and I find that it can lead to two different things. It can lead to sin and it can lead to settlement. And neither of those things are what you want for someone that you love that is waiting on the Lord's timing. Because, they're either going to take matters into their own hands to be like, well, I'm going to make sure I don't end up single. So they're going to make choices that they might regret one day. Or they're just going to settle for whatever comes next and be like, it's good enough. God is not a God of good enough. He's a God that wants to give us his best. And we have to wait on that best sometimes. And so why would we not encourage single people by saying, well, God's timing is worth the wait. Not, might as well quit waiting. It's not going to happen. Completely different, right? I understand that the goal of this advice was to try to tell someone to make peace with where they're at, but there's a difference in someone finding contentment with their season and just completely giving up. And I think this advice encourages them to give up a little more than anything else. And like I said, I know the people that I love, I don't want them to settle, and I don't want them to feel rushed into sin because they just want to make sure that they don't end up single. That's terrible. If we love people, then we should speak life into that area, not death. So whoever this was said to, I'm praying for you. I'm sorry that happened to you. And if you truly believe that the Lord has spoken to you, that you will have a spouse, I believe that. I believe that the Lord speaks to us in different ways. And we have to cling to those promises, right? So anyway, we'll move on to the next one because I'm just going to keep getting more fired up as we go. This next one says, it will come to you when you least expect it or aren't looking for it. And the person said, well, I've been not expecting it or not looking for it for 8 years. So this one used to drive me crazy, right? Because I do agree with some level that you're not supposed to just go make things happen, right? And take matters into your own hands. I agree. We also can't obsess and sit on our butts and just wait for a spouse. I agree with that. But as much as I think this is well-intended, I also find this to be biblically misleading. And, the Bible calls us to actively seek his will. And so there's a difference in waiting for his timing and his will, waiting idly and waiting expectantly. And I do think that this advice is not elaborated on enough to where some people take the extreme and they're like, okay, well, I don't want to seem eager or desperate, so I'm just going to be unapproachable. Or you have people that are just like, I'm going to be completely unavailable so that my spouse, it has to be super grand for me to know that it's them. That's a little extreme, and I don't think that's necessary. But that's where I think that this is a little bit misleading, is that we all have this thought, that we have to sit in one position or we'll get passed by. And that's not true. God is not going to let what's meant for you pass you by. And I love the example of Ruth in this, right? Ruth and Boaz. It's the hallmark story of the Bible. We know it. We love it. Everybody, all the women want to find their Boaz. Been there. I get it, right? I love it. And I think Ruth's story is beautiful because she is a real example of tending it was a literal field in her story, but really dedicating to the area she was called to and where she is and what she's doing, and wasn't worried about anything else. I mean, she was actually widowed. Her husband passed away, and her mother-in-law traveled and to a completely different land where they really weren't super accepted. And Ruth ended up gathering grain in a field, for food. And Boaz actually saw her, and even though she wasn't technically supposed to be there, he ordered his, servants and things to care for her and watch for her and make sure that she was able to pick up the grain that she needed. So he was taking care of her, and she didn't even know. And she wasn't looking for it, wasn't expecting it, and Boaz ended up being her husband. It's beautiful and amazing. And I love that she was working her field and was just focused on that, right? Like, I'm just here to do what I need to do. I'm not going to worry about anything else. And God just completely interrupted her path. And that's what we all want. That's a better image of it'll happen when you least expect it, is more of when we are encouraging people to, stop chasing it, stop seeking it, stop being so obvious, as in like, baiting, right, with our social media. Like, we don't always have to do that and play the game, I think is what this advice is trying to accomplish. But why don't we encourage people to stay their course and do their thing until it comes? Like, ask them instead, well, what can you focus on now that the Lord's teaching you? Or what has the Lord called you to do that you can pour this energy into, that you'd like to pour into a relationship? And I can tell you that there's so much fruit that can come from that season. Singleness is a really sweet season if you let it be. It's very intimate time with the Lord that you won't get back. And you can accomplish a lot of different things when you're single than you can when you're not. And I think your ministry changes a little in both seasons. And so it's usually when we wait for a relationship that either we have work that we need to do, or that the Lord needs to do in us, or our partner does, or both. It's not always really about like you have to put blinders on and pretend like you don't want a relationship. That's not what this means. But that's where I think this gets a little bit unhelpful, is that we don't clarify those things. And so we pressure single people to, again, be unapproachable and be unavailable. And then obviously they're going to end up stuck, right? That's not, you don't have to change who you are or what you're doing. It's more of your sole purpose and focus is we can't just sit and wait, and do nothing until we have a spouse and then let our life begin. It's, to wait expectantly, to do what we can here and now, and to bring fruit from this season, as opposed to just, fearing that we'll never get out of this season and into the next one. So again, I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's super elaborated on. I have my computer right here if you're watching the video, and I'm trying to get to my next question because I wanted to make sure I didn't, miss any. This next one, it gets me going. Makes me so upset and mad and sad and hurt for this person. And someone said to this person, God's got someone for everyone. Maybe you just aren't praying hard enough. What Bible are you reading? I absolutely don't understand how we've come to this conclusion if we're reading the same one. I just have to be real. Like, praying for a spouse is not transactional. Prayer in general is not transactional. So it does not mean that you pray for a spouse and they are directly dropped off at your doorstep. Okay, this is not Amazon. Because believe me, if I could have paid expedited shipping, of course I would have. I mean, we all would. That is not at all what the Bible teaches us about prayer. I call that the vending machine faith. I love to talk about that all the time. It's when you pray and you serve and you do for the Lord in expectation that he will return it and give you something back or for it. And that's not at all how we're called to live or to serve. And so what I really don't like about this is that it really misrepresents the heart of God for us and his character and his intention with prayer. Prayer is to be with God, to know God, to spend time with God. It's a conversation with him, to bring our needs to him, to praise him. But it is not something that you have to do to be earning a blessing. That's not. Now, I'm a firm believer you should cover your desires in prayer. And, I understand that the Bible does say, if you surrender to the Lord your desires of your heart, then he'll give them to you. And if you knock, the door will be open to you. And if you seek and you will find, ask and you will receive. I do agree with that. If you ask for protection, I believe the Lord will protect you, and go on and go on. But I don't think this is literal in the sense of, okay, well, if you ask for $1 million, he's going to give it to you, right? That's not how this works. This is not a vending machine. And I want to tell you a little story about prayer in this area. And I bought a Bible about 5 years ago. I think I was 19 when I bought this Bible, and I dedicated it to my future husband, who I had no idea who it was, no idea what he looked like, where he was from. I didn't know anything about him. And I diligently prayed and journaled in this Bible for 5 years. I, wrote highlighted scriptures in it and wrote notes with it to encourage my husband, or like what I would tell him if maybe he was here right now. Or I tried to really lean into the Lord and say, if my future husband is struggling with something, clue me in on, does he need strength? Does he need clarity? And I would seek the Lord in those pages and just try to cover that future marriage and relationship in prayer. And that was my way of physically surrendering that relationship. And it gave me a lot of hope. It was tangible hope that I could hold on to when I missed my husband without knowing who he was, right? And instead of, like we just talked about, waiting on my butt and just, not doing anything, I was actively covering that relationship in prayer. But I say all that to say, again, it was 5 years, not 5 minutes. So it's not like I bought this Bible, dedicated it to my husband, and said 2 or 3 prayers, and then he just showed up at my doorstep with flowers and was like, will you marry me? It wasn't anything like that. That'd have been great, right? That's completely crazy, though, and not realistic, and not really what the Lord means when he says that he wants us to surrender our desires to him. That's not the posture we should have when we do that. It took 5 years of covering that in prayer, and I don't think it's because I didn't pray hard enough at all. I don't think the Lord was punishing me and making me wait to make me earn it or anything like that. That's not who he is at all. But he loves us too much to give us what we want before we're ready for it and before it's time. And I've been saying this a lot, I feel like, in my devotionals and in my episodes, that, think about what you really want, and if the Lord gives it to you too early and it falls apart, you're going to blame him. Right? So he's trying to protect us from our own timing and taking matters into our own hands when we're not ready to handle them. So I don't at all think that this place of immediacy that we operate from in the world is something we should apply to God's timing with a relationship. Because we do live in an expedited shipping, drive-through, mobile order society. I mean, that's our attitude about everything. If it takes longer than 5 minutes, I'm not doing it, right? And we apply that to God, and the way we go to God about things and want things from the Lord, we completely apply this filter of immediacy to him, and then we get mad at him when he doesn't give it to us in our timing, right? And that leads to that discontentment that we're trying to encourage singles not to have. But when we tell them things like, well, it's probably your fault, you're not praying hard enough, what in the world are they supposed to think? That is so defeating and discouraging, and not at all going to put them in a place where they would be waiting well. Because again, if we're discouraging them and putting pressure on them, that's going to lead them to sin and settlement, which is what we don't want and what we're not called to in the Bible. We're called to wait on the Lord. And there's a verse I actually noted for this statement that someone sent in, and it's 1 John 5:14-15, and it says, if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know we have the requests that we have asked of him. So I love that it says if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. We know that we have the requests we have asked of him. We know that he's heard these things. Your prayers are not falling on deaf ears. Just because the Lord hasn't brought this to you yet does not at all mean that he's not listening to you, that he doesn't hear you. He loves you too much to give this to you before you're ready for it. It's not our will, but his. And that's where this advice can lead someone to be like, oh, well, if you're not praying hard enough, you better do something else. You just better work on it, better take control, get a hold of the situation, find you a spouse. No. We need to focus on the fact that the Lord is hearing us and is preparing someone for us and will give them to us when it's time. In fact, in the book of, I don't remember if it's Proverbs or Psalms, but it says that the Lord bottles up every tear that we shed. How sweet and personal is that? So how could we ever think that the heart of our Father in heaven towards us would be that he would punish us for not praying hard enough or good enough or well enough? that just is so sad to me. So for this person, I hope that you were able to heal from that. And I hope that you have since or will learn the heart of God for you is not conditional. It's not, works based or, how hard you pray. That is not at all the way the Lord wants to bless us. And so I'm super sad that was someone's truth for a while. So yeah, just want to say that. Just want to give some compassion in that area. Again, it just makes me sad. But I've got one more on here that I'm going to do. And this one I've actually heard several times from people. A lot of people very close to me, they have been told this. And it's, you better make this one work. This may be your last chance. Mind you, this person was not even 30 when this was spoken to them. Yeah. No, thank you. Talk about putting God in a box, first of all, and basically saying that, well, if you don't make this work, you're just not going to be able to get married. It's just not going to work out. And some of this may be said in jest, and I do acknowledge that, but honestly, I don't think it is all the time. I think people mean this. Like, they're genuinely saying, you need to make this work and figure this out, or you're never going to get married. And let me acknowledge this too. We can be the problem sometimes, okay? I fully acknowledge that sometimes we might actually have habits and patterns we need to break before we can start having successful relationships. We need to heal, all those things, totally understand that. But putting this pressure on someone, like, you better make this work, first of all, no, because if it's not fruitful and healthy and godly, no, don't make it work. Let it fall apart or get out of it. That's completely opposite advice. But we just love to think we have so much control of things. And that pressure on a single person is miserable. To think, oh my gosh, it's going to be all my fault if they don't like me. And then that leads to complete low self-esteem and discouragement and continuing in relationships at all. Completely distorts our image of who we are in God. And God is just not limited to our age or our unsuccessful and failed relationships. He can do way more than we can, especially after you turn 30. That doesn't have anything to do, like, a relationship and a blessing of a marriage is not a coupon that expires. It's not like, well, you need to use this by this date or you're not going to be able to get married. No. I mean, look at Abraham and Sarah. The Lord gave them a baby and Sarah was like 90. So tell me he can't do it, right? That's more how we should be encouraging single people, not putting this pressure on them that it's their last chance. If you believe in the Lord, that's not true. He could bring you somebody when you're 50. And I know that might not be ideal, but don't limit him. Don't stay and expect and hope from a place of that type of pressure and that type of, disappointment in yourself if it doesn't work out, because it's not always your fault. The Lord might actually be protecting you from something that isn't for you. And thank God for that, right? Thank goodness that we don't have the power to make all of those decisions for ourselves. Thank goodness that the Lord steps in and intervenes. And I don't know, it hurts me to think that someone might go into a date or a relationship with that type of pressure. I mean, that's not fun. That would be so miserable to me, to just be sick over it, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to ruin this for myself. I'm not going to be able to get married because I'm not going to make this date go well. Like, you just never know what your mind can do. And I don't know, again, my husband says it all the time about you can't put God in a box. And that's just the first thing I thought of with this is that is us drawing a line and limiting the Lord, saying that he cannot do beyond this situation. And that's just not true. The Lord can move in your life in ways that you never expected. The Bible literally says that he can do exceedingly and abundantly more than we could ever ask or think. And I absolutely believe that about relationships and marriages too. And Isaiah 60:22, it says, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. Not you, but him. He will make it happen when the time is right. And so I hope that the person hearing this, that feels this way and feels this pressure, that you just allow the Lord to take that from you. That when the time is right, he will make it happen for you. You don't have to go into these dates trying to take full control of the outcome. Obviously, we want things to go well and be successful. That's the point of dating, right? But that pressure is going to be more destructive to you and your mentality about dating and your relationship in general than anything else is going to be. The Lord does not expect perfection. He doesn't expect you to go in there and nail it, right? Like nail the date. It's not going to be perfect every time. We're going to say things we don't mean, and sometimes there just won't be chemistry. I mean, you just never know. But if something doesn't work out, it is not your last chance. Especially, again, if you believe that the Lord has promised you and spoken to you that there's someone out there for you, that He's going to bring you to someone one day and you're going to be married and live that life. Don't limit Him to what He can do. Don't operate from a place of doubt, because that's something when we wait in doubt and disappointment before it's ever even happened, might as well not do it, right? We're already shutting off the hope and possibility of what could be. And like I said, God's heart for us is not to wait in disappointment. It's to get our hopes up. It's safe to get your hopes up with the Lord, because even if it doesn't happen the way you expect or want it to, it'll happen in the way that's best for you. And I know that doesn't always feel super good, but in the end, that is so reassuring to me and encouraging that God knows in completion what I only know in part. I only see this little teeny tiny bit of what's going on, and He sees the whole picture. So you might be focused on the unsuccessful relationships and the failed relationships that you had, but He's not. He's looking at the whole grand scheme of the marriage that He has prepared for you and that's coming for you. I wish that we could be better as a whole, as people, about encouraging single people to look toward that instead of constantly looking back at the things that they did or the things they didn't do or the things that didn't work out and making them blame themselves. And again, we should all have accountability, take responsibility. We all aren't perfect, and we all maybe had a part to play in the fact that the relationship failed. But the Bible actually says to look forward to what's ahead, for I am doing something new. We need to apply that here too. You can look back and learn, but you don't need to look back and dwell and stay, because you're never going to grow from that. You can't produce fruit when you're facing backward all the time. So yeah, I don't know. That's just what I got to say about that. I definitely don't know everything. Should have put that disclaimer at the beginning. And I never want to come off like I think I have all the answers, especially about something like this. Because I don't believe that just because you get married means you have all the answers or that you did something right necessarily. God did it. God did something in your life and in my life and pulled it off. And I'm super thankful for that. But it definitely wasn't because I did everything perfectly all the time. Quite the contrary. But He's good. And He fulfilled a promise that He made to me. And I do believe that covering that in prayer helped. You know, there were so many things in that husband's Bible that I gave the Bible to my husband on the morning of our wedding. And when we kind of went through it together a little bit, there were things, I dated all of the notes. Like I put the date that I wrote them, and certain things happened in his life that actually lined up with some of the prayers I had prayed, which, you know, tell me that's not God, right? I mean, it was amazing. It was just so beautiful to see. But that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the fruit of leaning into that season. And you know, instead of complaining and pining over a spouse, why don't I pray for them? And I really think that doing that in singleness benefits you in marriage. I 100% do. So again, if you are single, that's a great thing to do. It's a great tangible piece of hope, is to get a Bible and dedicate it to them and give it to them one day. I really couldn't believe, I remember when I was getting married, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually giving this to my husband. Like, it was just me and this Bible for so long. And it was beautiful. It was amazing and wonderful. And I, you know, learned a lot from all the things that people said to me that weren't helpful and weren't fruitful. And so those of you that submitted these, I hope you can do the same. And again, I just hope we can be people that don't just cater to married couples, that we seek out our single friends and encourage them. You know, we don't try to force them to take matters into their own hands or to just get over it and be happy with where they are, but that we can lovingly be there for them and encourage them to wait on the Lord. And I don't know. Yeah, that's just how I feel about it. But wait on the Lord. It's always worth it. If you get anything from this episode, I hope that you get that. But I think I'm going to wrap up for the day. So thank you guys so much for tuning in this week on the True North podcast. Please subscribe to the show so that you can be alerted when all the new episodes are released. And we've got some exciting guests, exciting topics coming up. And I can't wait. So thank you guys so much for being here, and I hope you have a great week. So